The prosecutor for the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan, has arrived in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where violence between government forces and rebel groups is escalating. Khan is set to meet DRC President Felix Tshisekedi and other government officials while in the country. The M23 rebels who oppose the Congolese army say they are fighting for the rights of the ethnic Tutsi and other minority groups in the DRC. Around 7,000 people are estimated to have died in the violence since January. Well, Richard Moncrieff is a project director in the region with the International Crisis Group. Good to have you with us. Richard, the fighting in Congo has been escalating. Neighboring Rwanda is said to be backing the M23 rebels there. How big of a risk is there that this could blow up into a bigger regional conflict?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Well, I think that risk is already there. You mentioned Rwanda, who not only back the rebels, the M23, they've also deployed thousands of their own troops into eastern Congo. And one of the sets of combatants that they're fighting is the Burundian army. Burundi is a small country to the south of Rwanda, which has rather sided with the DR Congo on this issue. And Burundian troops have been at the front line fighting Rwandans on Congolese territory. So we already see some of the makings of a regional war. And I'm afraid that in the last few weeks, that's been growing because having taken Goma, as you mentioned in your clip there, the M23 and their Rwandan allies have pushed further south and have recently taken the town of Bukavu, which is the capital of South Kivu province. So they now really have kind of effective control of two very heavily populated and very rich, both in terms of minerals and farmland, both very rich provinces of eastern DRC. And so the risk is there. Sure, go on.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You mentioned minerals. Many people are watching this conflict and wondering what is driving it. How does competition for DRC's mineral resources factor into all of this?
Well, it's a factor amongst others. We should remember that DRC is a very mineral-rich country. The east of the country has been rocked by instability or warfare since the 1990s. And both Congolese armed groups and also foreign armies, including Rwandans, Burundis and Ugandans, have all intervened in DRC, partly as a kind of geopolitical rivalry. They're all trying to push each other back and maintain control over what they see as their areas of influence. But there's also been an awful lot of minerals have been shipped out illicitly into those three countries, gold, coltan and others. And that fuels the war economy. And it's certainly, I would consider, a factor that motivates neighbouring countries to intervene in DRC, either directly or through proxy armed groups.
Well, as we've heard, ICC prosecutor Karim Khan has arrived in the Democratic Republic of Congo. What sort of allegations is the International Criminal Court looking into?
Well, they're looking into a whole range of war crimes, sexual abuse crimes, recruitment of children. I'm sure those will be the main focus. I think it's worth just adding for your viewers that the Congolese army invited the ICC prosecutor to reopen cases and to rekindle his interest and the ICC's interest in DR Congo, largely because they would like to see him focus on the abuses allegedly committed by the M23 and by foreign forces, including Rwanda. Now, of course, the prosecutor of the ICC is not beholden to limit himself to those crimes, and we know that militia acting on the side of Kinshasa, acting alongside the Congolese army, have also very likely committed war crimes. They've certainly committed some abuses which are fairly well documented. So what I think is very interesting to look for in this evolving story is how the relationship between the ICC and the Congolese government is going to evolve if, as I would expect, the Congolese government may also set its sights on some allies of Kinshasa and some of their activities in the east.
Now, justice and accountability, that's one part of this story. But what's going on in terms of efforts to get a peace process going there?
Right. Of course, there's been an African-mediated peace process since 2022. Unfortunately, it's become rather fragmented. And I think it's essentially broken down, unfortunately, in the last 2 or 3 months. It's been led by Angola, who've made some very honourable and tireless efforts to try to get Kinshasa and Kigali to talk rather than fight. They've proven, unfortunately, to have not worked. Rwanda seems determined to continue with its invasion of its neighbour. Kinshasa seems determined to refuse to negotiate directly with the M23 armed group. Kinshasa says it should only negotiate with Kigali, with the Rwandan government. So that's a big point of contention. The actual mediation process has now been given over to 3 former presidents or heads of state, prime minister in the Ethiopian case, from Nigeria, Ethiopia and Kenya. And it's a joint mediation effort now that involves the Southern African community and the East African community, which is good to have them all on board. But it looks like a large number of mediators, and I suspect coordination between those mediators is going to be very challenging.
Now, the DRC's president has criticized Western countries, other countries, for not doing enough to help stop the violence in the DRC. Does he have a point?
Yes, I think he does, because the point that the Congolese president has made is that Congo is a victim of international aggression, and that international diplomats, including at the UN in New York and also at the European Union in Brussels, should treat it as such and should more roundly condemn Rwanda. Now, the UN Security Council and the European Union have more recently been more open in their condemnation of Rwanda after much hesitation over many years of naming Rwanda as a guilty party for having intervened in DR Congo. And I think that's welcome. But Kinshasa is of the point of view that Western countries should really cut their ties entirely with Rwanda. Now, that's very difficult because Rwanda's ties with Western countries go very deep. They go from sponsorship of sports clubs to peacekeeping operations in Mozambique or Central African Republic or elsewhere, to a big contribution to UN peacekeeping and so forth. So Western leaders are in a big dilemma in terms of their relationships with Kigali, although they have more recently, partly because of the increased violence in Eastern Congo, and partly also, I think, because of the salience of the issue of territorial integrity in Europe, they've started to take a somewhat harder line with Rwanda concerning its actions in DR Congo.
Richard, thank you very much for your insights. That was Richard Moncrieff with the International Crisis Group.
Thank you.